you know you can use Elon Musk's learning strategies to easily become a software developer and get a job even during these hard times? I've used this strategy to both learn coding and get my dream job in the industry last year in just 6 months. You might be thinking, is Elon even a coder? Yes and no. He probably knows how to code, but that's not the point of this video. He's like the ultimate learning machine. He has businesses in 4 or 5 different industries that I know off the top of my head, and is dominating all of them in one way or another. So his learning strategies can be easily transferred to what we as coders can replicate. So without wasting any time, let's get it going. Elon's mission to Mars has been one of the coolest and more complicated ventures he's ever had to face. In 2006, Falcon 1 was launched but failed within 34 seconds of launch. Then he tried it again in 2007 and then again in 2008. That was 3 straight failures for Elon, and his company SpaceX was on the verge of bankruptcy.
And actually we had 3 launch failures. We were just able to scrape enough money together for a 4th flight.
They had enough money for 1 more launch, and it was a do or die type of situation. On the 4th flight, he finally did it. This successful flight allowed them to get more funding and catapulted SpaceX to being a serious contender in the space exploration industry. But how are they able to make things work even after these 3 failures beforehand? It's because each failure taught them a lesson that allowed them to make an improvement on the next flight. This is known as a feedback loop principle. Now, I'm not saying that coding is like rocket science or anything, but we can take some lessons here and apply it to learning how to code. If you're a new developer, you know how hard and difficult it is to learn something new. I remember when I first learned JavaScript, DOM manipulation was such a confusing topic for me. But what I did was practice constantly building projects that applied this principle and going to my peers at the Odin project and asking them for help whenever I needed it. After multiple rounds of failing and finding the solution, I was able to really understand the topic at a very practical level. It's all about iterating and learning to fail quickly so that you can pick yourself up and move on to the next topic as soon as possible. So that's really the mindset you have to carry when learning to code. Just like Elon Musk this year with the SpaceX Starship flight. It's the first rocket test flight that is able to carry 100 people in one flight. But this rocket also combusted into flames. But if you looked at the team, the whole team cheered because they knew that this was a much bigger lesson to be learned in this failure and saw that their hopes and dreams of sending people to Mars was just that much closer. Okay, let's rewind just a bit. How did Elon Musk, who only spent 2 days on his PhD in physics before dropping out, manage to figure out how to build a business around advancing rockets and spacecraft technology? He had no experience in rocket science, and so how did he do it? Well, Elon identifies flaws in the market. In order to get people to Mars, he had to drastically decrease the cost of building a rocket. So what he did was first look at the basic cost of building a rocket. He realized that rockets are mostly made out of aluminum, titanium, copper, and carbon fiber. He looked at the cost of these materials in the commodity market and realized that it only accounted for 2% of the typical price of a rocket. Okay, so we realized that it wasn't the material that made it so expensive. So then he looked at the typical process of making a rocket. Normally rockets were built in companies' multi-layered processes with many contractors and subcontractors, each taking their cut along the way. As someone with experience in the construction industry and working with subcontractors, you know how expensive these guys can be. So what did Elon do? He decided to move all the processes in-house, which drastically decreased the cost of production because they weren't paying for the markups of all these contractors. But the biggest cost savings came from the ability to reuse rockets. Normally the rockets are a one-time use, but Elon with his team designed a rocket that would return to Earth after launch, saving the cost of making a whole new rocket every time. This strongly demonstrates the first principle thinking. This approach is all about breaking down complex problems into their most basic fundamental parts. When it comes to debugging your code, this is an essential skill you can use to simplify your problem-solving process. Say for example, you have a drop-down that's supposed to show a list of people that you pulled from some API. If you don't see anything under the drop-down menu, then you obviously have an issue. First, you can check, are you actually connected to the API? You can do that by logging the stored variables and checking if there are any errors. Next, are you actually populating the drop-down the correct way? If none of these work, then you can go to the backend and see what the issue is there. So as you can see, when you break down the issue into multiple parts, you can hone in on the actual problem instead of confusing yourself along the way. Hopefully that was helpful to you guys. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this because I have a whole lot more advice to give you guys if you want to be a software developer and get a job this year. I'll see you guys next time.